Hosted by you/artistic minute 4365. My father has always been against any confrontation or arguments. He is extremely passive, refuses to stand up for himself, and avoids any conflict. If someone isn't paying attention while walking and bumps into him, he insists it's his own fault. If his employer messed up his salary, he wouldn't bother fixing it. If a mechanic didn't properly repair his car, he would just accept it as is. This unfortunately resulted in a tumultuous childhood with my insanely narcissistic mother. She controlled his every move. She got him to quit his job and be a locked-in stay-at-home dad. She had him do every chore, insulted him at every step, and cheated on him relentlessly, and even brought affair partners into our home. She enjoyed making his life miserable every day, and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, were there for me as much as they could be. They tried for years to make my father leave, but he never budged. When she would direct her anger at me, in the form of screaming, insulting, or general demeaning, my father never once found the guts to stand up for me or support me. When I was a kid, if I cried to my dad about something mom did or said to me, he would sweep it under the rug or just insist I forget about it. Hell, he would even try to justify it. As I grew older, it really set in for me how messed up this was. My mother gladly kicked me out of the house when I was 18, and my father just sat there looking sullen. He didn't say a damn thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamic was awful, and I could have easily gone down the incel route if not for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to get into a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I got stationed and utterly destroyed him in the divorce. She was unalived a year later in a DUI with one of her affair partners. I took a lot of joy in hearing that it took her hours to unalive, and that's when I really knew I needed help to process things. I'm almost 30 now, have a girlfriend who is perhaps the best thing to ever happen in my life, and she fully understands the situation with my family. I have learned not to allow myself to be consumed with anger and resentment by my past, or so I thought, as you'll see, and instead put that energy into my future. I have been extraordinarily low contact/near no contact with my father since I left. As much as I try, I cannot make that connection with him. I recently went to a family reunion and brought my girlfriend with me. My father was there since it was his side of the family. They have many issues with him, but he is family, so whatever, I guess. I made sure to avoid him. I was chatting with my uncles when I heard my father talking in the background. He was discussing how a co-worker of his was going through a divorce after discovering his wife was having an affair and was positioned to have a very favorable outcome. My father remarked that his co-worker should instead work to forgive his wife and, in his own words, set a good example for unity and forgiveness, adding that he believed he had set a great example for me in that regard. I swear it was like a switch went off in my head, and I was mentally back to being the rage-filled 18-year-old. After all these years, he still hadn't learned a damn thing. I turned to him and asked if he was serious. He looked at me and started to stutter. I know the next minute was pure word vomit, and I can't relay it perfectly, but to sum it up, I shouted that he was a pathetic father, a pathetic man, that his family all knew he was a disgrace of a human being who would rather let his son be treated like trash than defend him because he was a coward, that no one would ever see him as an example to live by, that his wife would rather sleep with half the neighborhood than even touch him, and that he should never, ever believe anyone respects him. I began to derail and ramble between my shouting, and my girlfriend quickly took me out and drove me home. It was insane how quickly being away from him made me feel better. When we got back, she just held me and told me it was okay. Again, she's the best thing to ever happen to me. I was ashamed of how I lost it and am now going to resume my therapy, that's a given. However, I'm glad I finally unloaded what always needed to be said to him. My extended family has pretty mixed reactions. His brothers, my uncles, said it was time for him to hear it from me, while my grandparents are pissed I did that in front of the entire extended family, with some saying I should have done that behind closed doors instead of in front of everyone. Commenter. All I can say is that based on your post and this interaction, your anger is deeply misguided. And you're failing to recognize the truly horrifying thing. You're behaving like the mother you actually should hate. Ops response. Oh, trust me, I fully hate her as well, but she is gone, and there is no use in holding a grudge against someone who isn't alive. I had hoped, though, that after his son made him an outsider in his life, his family openly joked to his face about his failings as a father, his ex-wife drained him of everything he had and made him start over in a one-bedroom apartment, and his friends slowly left his life one at a time out of embarrassment, he would have had at least one moment to reflect and maybe consider that he should have done things differently. Update 2 days later. Thanks for the advice and recommendations, even among some of the comments calling me the jerk. However, some of them needed to be addressed because they were either hilarious or cringe-worthy. Some were very angry, and they kind of confused me at first until I read their comments further down or saw their profiles and noticed rants about double standards or complete non-sequitur ramblings about women. So yeah, not helpful advice, but they were great dark reflections of how I could have turned out if not for the support in my life. Some attempted to portray my dad as a humble, kind, caring, sensitive old man who I'm just being a bully to. This was a very good insight into how enablers of abuse get away with so much in today's world, because so many people forget that they are part of the abuse themselves. Some were attempting to mentally dissect me or have a gotcha moment with me to pull apart my story. That was generally asinine, And I had to step away from those before they asked for my cranial measurements or something. So it was pretty much immediately when I was up the next morning that I realized I needed to resolve the events of last night. I first spoke to my girlfriend and gave a sincere apology for having her see me like that. She reassured me that nothing was wrong, that she's known me for years and has always known me to be level-headed, and that she understands why I kind of snapped. She herself has a history of dealing with narcissistic family members, so she absolutely understands the dynamic. She only really told me that it would be best to work on spending time around my extended family since my father will always be there. I told her not to worry, I'm immediately going to talk to them afterward to figure that out. So that part's fine. I look like kind of a jerk in front of her, but I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. I also informed her of my intentions to resume therapy just to keep myself steady, which she was happy to hear. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologized for putting such a sore dent in their family reunion. I acknowledged that it wasn't appropriate, and while it felt good to say those things to him, it should have been done privately and not in front of everyone. I also told them that going forward, as much as I love spending time with them, since the family always hangs out as one group that my father will always be a part of, I need to distance myself occasionally until I feel comfortable interacting with him. I assured them that I am not, nor would I ever be, establishing an ultimatum or making demands of them, and that either way, I need to step back for now. I guess during my apology and explanation, I was kind of going on a tangent because my grandfather interrupted me to calm down. He told me that after I left, people kind of separated or slowly started leaving, and eventually, they were able to talk to my father one-on-one. I guess seeing me have such a freak out led to my grandmother having a mini freak out of her own when she started talking to my father, which resulted in her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both of my grandparents, my grandmother has always been extra protective of me, so seeing me that way must have set off a fire in her. My grandfather then said that it has become a bit of an open family secret that my father is failing. His brothers taunt him about it, and they generally don't have a great relationship with him. For my grandparents, it's always just been uneasy. But seeing me the other day and how much it still affects me has really driven it home for a lot of people that it was really bad. They began to try and apologize, saying they were sorry if they didn't do enough, but I very adamantly retorted that they did more than anyone could have expected. It was very emotional for a minute, but it culminated in them telling me that they have decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being. They gave him the ultimatum that unless he engages in deep introspection and regularly goes to therapy, that distance may become permanent. My extended family, I've been told, is going to try to reach out or call, but I asked my grandparents to relay to them that it's not necessary and that I'm fine. I also expressed my apologies to them for ruining the day, but again, they told me I shouldn't apologize for being hurt. Since then, extended family members have sent some messages, with the general consensus being that it's okay, though some older members have complained about my lack of respect toward my father. And finally, I texted my father, hoping to meet at a local coffee shop for a final talk. When I met him, he didn't look good. I think his parents tearing into him finally got the message through. I had so many things I could have said, but instead, I first asked him if the coworker he gave advice to took it well. He just said that neither the coworker nor several others interact with him anymore. I then asked if he truly believed that every single thing he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He didn't really say anything. I finally asked if he has any regrets about how I was treated as a child and if he thinks he ever did anything wrong. He looked utterly defeated and just mumbled that he could have done more. I could have poked and prodded or gone on another rant, but instead, I told him this should be goodbye and that I hope he gets the help he needs. I think finally unloading my frustrations was what I needed to be able to move on and find peace. I absolutely need to stay on track with therapy and admit that a public outburst wasn't okay, but I think I'll be fine.